New York, USA. She teaches courses in linguistics and multicultural education in face-to-face, blended, and synchronous online formats. Her research interests include culturally responsive sustaining education, SLIFE, students with limited or interrupted formal education, non-traditional teaching of grammar, and instructional technology, especially flipped learning. She has published articles in ELT Journal and TESOL Journal, among others. Her most recent book, published with the University of Education Press, is Meeting the Needs of SLIFE, A Guide for Educators, the second edition, and that's co-authored with Andrea De Capua and Frank L. Tang. Dr. Marshall has developed a model of online flipped learning, and her most recent article on that topic is called Fostering Teaching Presence Through the Synchronous Online Flipped Learning Approach. I'll put that link in the chat pod. And that's published in TESOL Education Journal and co-authored with Ilka Kostka. So Dr. Marshall, welcome. We are honored to have you here today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that if one of my students that I remember from Green Bay, one of my Hmong students, had heard that introduction, he would have not been at all impressed by it, because he would have said, but how many children do you have? Which actually happened to me. And I was just bowled over by it, but that was what interested him the most, because he focuses on family, and he looked at me, he wanted to know, he saw I was married, he wanted to know, how many children do you have? And so that's an interesting way to begin, because what we're going to be looking at today, and I see from your responses, thank you very much for doing that. I see from your responses that many of you already have a sense of the complete perspective shift that our students have to go through when they come to a place so different from their natural cultural setting. And so that's what we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to be taking you through some activities. So this is not a sit and get. This is not sit and get. So we are sitting, you are sitting, but, or maybe you're not, but I am going to ask you to participate. So I see that you were using a Jamboard, which is good because we're going to use one. You'll also be using the chat, and you'll also be going very briefly into breakout rooms, okay? You might also want to have your phone nearby, because I am going to be asking you to take a picture. And so you don't have to do it, but those of you who find it easy to do that, there'll be a chance to do that. Not a picture of yourself. Okay. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be posting a lot of links in the chat, but all of the links are also in a link document. So the first link I'm going to give you is our folder. So here's our folder. So if you go to that folder, and I'm going to share my screen and show you the folder. Okay, this is our folder. So if you've clicked on the link, you can see this folder. And once you're in the folder, you can navigate by yourself. You don't need to go into the chat to pick up links, but I wanted to be redundant, which is another major principle of online communication. So it's simply redundant. The links in the chat or the links right here inside the document, the folder. So it says Intro to MALP for SLIFE. That's our folder, okay? And everything you need for today is in that folder, all right? Some of you who like to jump ahead, go ahead, jump ahead. No secrets here, but we are going to go kind of in order. And so speaking of order, can you see what we're going to pull up first? We're going to pull up the agenda, all right? Now, I don't want to go so fast as to lose anybody. On the other hand, I know that I have limited time with you. And although an hour sounds like a long time, it's already 10:07. So, all right. So you can see this is our agenda. I'm not going to go through it with you. You can see that the agenda is numbered. You can see that it has links. So that's another place where you can get the links. So I hope that no one gets lost as we go and link ourselves through. So you might want to have your agenda. You might want to have your Google Drive open to the folder and then open up a tab for the agenda. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is examine the pre-work. All right. So what I did here was I asked you some questions, and I'm going to be referring not to the video, because the video, you all gave your feedback in the video, and we'll talk at the very end about the new videos yet you're going to watch for next time, because there's going to be a next time. And I want to give you some tips about how to use PlayPosit, because this was kind of just throwing you into the pool of PlayPosit. Some of you hadn't used it before, but I'm not talking about that part now. I'm talking about the Google form. So in the Google form, I asked you to give an example of how a student's culture can influence the way they learn. And we had some good crowdsourcing here, because many of you did respond and you gave a lot of great ideas. What I did was categorize them for you. And I find the categorization interesting. So there was one person who did talk directly about language, and that is definitely true. And in this case, they talked about lesser known, lesser used languages that are problematic in terms of being able to have the student access their L1. So I see that can sometimes be an issue. What I noticed in particular was a lot of you talked about processes for learning, and this puts you way ahead of a lot of other folks who are not aware that processes for learning is a very important piece of the way culture influences learning. And many of you talked about differences that have their root in collectivism versus individualism. A lot of you mentioned very specific examples, such as group work, being silent, not necessarily speaking that much, particularly to make statements to a teacher. And also you talked about being uncomfortable with being graded and evaluated individually, and all of those kinds of things about processes for learning and just the way that you are judged for your mastery being different. All right. The second area, the third area actually, that I noticed was an area of priorities. So some of you gave, again, more general comments, others more specific. So for example, the first one here, maybe you can tell I'm using bolded keywords. I don't expect you to be reading all of this, but you have this document. You can read it at your leisure, and you have all of everybody else's comments on all the questions. So punctuality, and then caring for the family. So some of you actually talked about emphasis on education being different, academics being different. So that was another category which had to do with priorities. And you know from ICF that understanding others' priorities is extremely important if you're going to be successful with people, because we do have different priorities. And it's not a matter of yes or no, it's a matter of degree, right? It's a matter of how much emphasis you place on one versus another. And there's an activity you'll be doing for next time that goes directly to that. The other area you talked about was prior knowledge and experience, which can influence, and that a lot of that prior knowledge and experience will be cultural, and it will influence their receptivity and how easily they access new information. So some of you gave, again, very specific comments, others more general in this area of prior knowledge or experience, okay? And of course, that's different for every class and every student in every class, right? But it's something to keep in mind. And that came up also in the pronoun example that I showed you. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. The other area that was sort of interesting was societal roles that came up, particularly gender, but also generation. Okay, so there were a few that came in a little too late for me to categorize you, but I want to plop you in there. So if you didn't see yours in a category, they came in later this morning, but I wanted to pop them in. All right, so that was the first question. Now I'm going to take you to the second question. We're not, by the way, going through all of it. I'm just going to go through a couple because we're going to move on. But the next one had to do with teaching. So what do you do to respond to culture in your own practice. And probably many of you right away think about relationships. And yes, many of you mentioned that, okay? These are different specific ways that you talked about a relationship with your students. The next was classroom materials. You had some ideas about what you do in your teaching that has to do with classroom materials involving incorporating the student's culture or in some way responding to it. Teaching strategies was another one. And again, we're not doing this together now. I want you to kind of scan and skim, see what other people put, maybe find your own, look at the bolded areas. And then I noticed non-academic cultural responsiveness. So many of you noted that there's not just in the classroom during the lesson, but cultural responsiveness in other ways. So you gave some very interesting examples, I thought. The one about entering the building instead of lining up to enter the building. So there are so many little ways, or the socializing after school, for example. You had some very good ideas there, and I think it's important to think about cultural responsiveness as pervasive throughout the environment, not only in your own particular class, right? And then, of course, cooking came up. That was interesting. And more that were not categorized, but they came in later. So not last but not least, some of these other ideas that are not yet bolded or categorized. Okay, the next one would be pronouns. So by the way, I want to say right away, there was no sound. There's no supposed to be sound. So what this was a student PowerPoint. He made this PowerPoint in the lab. He made it, and it's just a PowerPoint. I just decided I wanted to show you the PowerPoint. So I just made a video. I clicked the PowerPoint and made a video of it. So I should have said there was no audio because a lot of you were concerned about, oh, I missed the audio. No audio. But you all got the point. This is culturally sustaining, okay? The idea here is cultural responsiveness is a very important part of what we do. But if we're not culturally sustaining, we're missing, the other shoe, okay? We need to help sustain for them what they bring with us and leverage it, because that's what is so difficult for many other teachers to do. We are the ones, by and large, who can get to know our students to the extent that we can help them leverage what they bring. All right. And so this was a great opportunity for you to see how this student, and this student was very different from the other students. I just showed you one student. They all did this, and they did whatever they wanted. And some of them didn't do a PowerPoint. They could have done something else. But what they were doing is they were working with the pronouns in their own way that made sense to them. And originally the teacher did a worksheet. And I said, let's see if we can jazz this up a bit. And it was interesting. These were high school kids, by the way, SLIFE, who had arrived that year. And they were all put in 9th grade, but different ages. Okay, I don't want to spend again too much time, but I want you to see that almost everyone who wrote a comment here wrote about that very thing. Things like voice and choice came up, lived experiences, meaningful to the creator of the show, student-centered, personally meaningful. And in particular, I want to draw your attention to the last comment. I put it last because I wanted to make sure you focus here. This was a very interesting comment. It gave teachers an opportunity to better understand who their students are. So if you give them this creative freedom within the parameters of whatever the lesson is that you're teaching, you actually, there's a hidden agenda. You find out more about their priorities, about who they are, and what their associations are that they make with things. Notice the shoe. And he told me separately, he said, that's a very special kind of shoe. That's the one the Dominicans like, How are you going to know that, right? I mean, I guess you can look at what they wear. Okay. Now, some of you did focus on the slide. Whoa, what happened there? Some of you focused on the slideshow itself. which was fine too. I mean, that was another way to look at this. Digital, multilingual, more up to date, helped him understand the features of the slideshow. Yeah, they were having fun with that. Some of you noted that it's not perfect, but of course it's student created, so it wasn't, but that's a learning. They're learning, right? If it's perfect, maybe the lesson's too easy. This was obviously right at his instructional level. Okay, all right. I'm not going through the others, but they're here for you to go through, which is all of your insights from reading the article that you chose. You're free to read the other or anything, whatever else you want. But the insights are there that you have. And then the questions, I put a little column there for responses. So we will be taking a look at these questions, and I'll be looking at them between sessions because that we're not going to look at them right now. But I'm glad that we have these questions because that helps us all to think. And again, you see these questions, same as me. All right. So now, that was the going through the pre-work. And so now I'm going to give you your first task, which is you're going to go to the Jamboard. You're going to go to our Jamboard, and I'm going to give you the link to our Jamboard. You can find the link on the agenda. You can find the link in the Google folder, and you can find the link in the chat. All right, so we're going to go to the Jamboard. And what I'd like you to do as a sign-in activity for this workshop is grab a sticky, and there are two, where is mine? There it is. The sign-in activity. Grab a sticky and share one insight from examining the pre-work for this session. Okay, so what's one takeaway from all the pre-work I just showed you? What grabbed you? What's one thing? Anything at all. And there's an overflow board because we have a lot of folks here. So I'll give you just a very quick minute for that, and then we'll move on. One takeaway. If anyone is unable or is not in a position to post to the Jamboard, you can always use the chat, but the Jamboard is kind of fun and easy and gives us a crowdsourcing way to do it rather than the chat. What's your takeaway from examining the pre-work? Someone's responding to the process of the workshop. That's interesting. Yes, I am using my SOFLA model today. I gave a lot of webinars and I decided not to do that anymore. Okay, just take another minute. Feel free to go to the second board. Let's see if anyone's over there. Yeah, a couple people are over there. Oh, somebody responded to the play posit, even though we didn't talk about it just now. Sure. Pre-work includes the play posit. You can respond to the videos. Anything you like. You can also resize, you can move these around, but I think you know Jamboard because I saw you before. All right. Now, normally with my students, oh, by the way, everything I do with you, you can do with your SLIFE. However, you do it differently. So what I normally do when I get everything up on the board, whatever it is, whether it's a picture, words, combo, whatever it is, I say, look at all of what everybody put and let's think about it. Do we notice anything? And that's where you can say, do you see patterns? Do you see groups? Can you move them around? What can we do as we think about what everybody put? We're not doing that now, but I'm just showing you that everything we do, you can then use, all right, to work on those academic ways of thinking. And this is a decontextualized task that I'm giving you right now. All right, okay. All right, so now what I'd like to do is take you on a field trip to another Jamboard. Actually, it's not a Jamboard, it's something called Miro. Could you put in the chat, has anyone heard of Miro? Miro. Miro. It's just like it sounds, like the artist, Miro. Like Miro. Okay, Miro. Now, I don't recommend using Miro with SLIFE necessarily, but I used it in teacher training, and I'm going to show it to you. So this is Miro. Now, what I'm showing you in Miro, I hope you all can see. I should be sharing Miro. It should say Miro. All right, these are cultural artifacts, and you might say, oh, now we're getting to the cultural artifacts. Yes. So this is a group I worked with last summer, and they had a similar activity to you. They were asked to bring a cultural artifact. So this is their cultural artifacts, but I'm going to give you a job to do. This is not the traditional, oh, let's all talk about a cultural artifact. This is something much deeper. And I'd like you to think about what we're going to do here. I'm going to ask you 3 questions about the artifacts. Now, if you go to Miro, I'm not sure if you have the ability to make it larger or smaller as I do, but you can. I did give you the link, and I can make it a little bigger if you need it. But what I wanted you to see was all of them, because I'd like you to look at them. And the first question, and you're going to be doing a little bit of this in your breakout, so think about this. Your first question is, look at them and see which ones you connect with, you personally, you. Which one draws you? Which, you'll look at someone and say, that's nothing to do with me. I want to know what has to, not what you're interested in, but what connects with you. Do you see any that you'd like to say, well, I'd really like to know who that is? Hey, that person has something in common with me. Take a look. Now, as you look, this is not an action item. I'm just doing thinking with you now, thinking only. What I'd like you to do now is think about who you'd like to get to know better. And do you think you have some idea of who it is? Not who it is literally, but does it tell you something about the person? What does it tell you? And it doesn't have to be the ones you picked for question 1. Look at all of them. Do you get an idea of who that might be? What kind of person it is? Maybe what's important to them? Take another look. Okay, now, I'd like to ask you if there's something on here that's completely, because I'm asking you different questions, completely unfamiliar to you. You've never seen it before. You have no idea what it is. You want to ask somebody about it. Hey, what the heck is a Dominican tostones presser? Actually, I have a Dominican student this semester, and when he saw it, he said, oh, that was my artifact that I brought. So anyway, take a look. What do you see you know nothing about? Maybe there isn't anything that you know nothing about, right? So worldly wise we are, but you never know. Okay. The other thing I want to put a pin in, I'm not actually asking you because we're going to do breakout now. And could someone help? Is someone helping with breakouts? I'd like to put everyone in breakouts. But before you do, I have instructions to show. What I'd like you to think about just a little bit is if you notice any that could be grouped together for any reason. Like if you would put them together, are there ones that might be similar? They're different, obviously. There's some you kind of would make a little group of these and a group of those. but just think about a little bit. We're going to come back to that notion after the breakouts.
Helaine, we have 51 people. How many breakout rooms would you like?
I don't know. They can do maybe 4 or 5 in a group because they're going to show their artifacts. So, you know,
Okay.
But before you go, I'm going to give you some instructions in the breakout instructions. All right, are we ready? I'm going to show you the instructions. This is another cool tool. I'm also showing you some tools. I showed you Miro. Miro is, by the way, infinite. So if I could have put all 50 of you on Miro, you know, I could put all 50 of you on Miro instead of Jamboard 1, Jamboard 2, Jamboard 3. It's infinite, literally. You can play with it anytime you want. But now we're going to go to Genially. All right, watch this. These are going to be your instructions for the breakout. All right. So these are your instructions for the breakout. So you're going to go to the breakout. You will not have 15 minutes. No, you're not going to have that much time because we left a little time less. Well, maybe seven or 8 minutes, but you're going to share your artifacts. Look on the left. Be sure to hold it so your group can see it clearly from different angles. Tell your group about it. What is it? Why you chose it? What you like. Answer clarification questions. And here are the guide questions for people watching the other presenter here who's showing their artifact. How does it help you establish a relationship with them? How does it show about something about their priorities? And how does the owner help you to understand more about it if you don't know about it? So put in the chat what this reminds you of. This is your little quiz. What do those 3 questions remind you of? I hope you get it. What do they remind you of, those 3 questions? Okay. And then the next thing you're going to do is snap a picture of your artifact and upload it to your group's page. In Jamboard, I made a page for 5 breakout rooms because I didn't realize how many people would be here. A lot of you are here. We'll have to figure that one out while you're in your breakouts. You're going to go to your group's page and put your artifact up there, a picture of it with a caption, just like you saw the other group do. Picture and caption, and try and resize things so they fit, okay? And then we're going to come back together and someone will give a very quick highlight from your group, real quick. And then we're going to talk about, for a very short minute, how you, what could you teach based on cultural artifacts collections? What kinds of things could you teach? Okay, so you're going to go in your groups now. If you can put them in groups now, that'd be great. And the breakout instructions are available to you. They're in the folder. And I'm also going to put the link to the breakout instructions in the chat, and you can grab it before you get into your group. All right. Before you go into your group, those are your instructions, and they're also in the folder and on the agenda. 3 places. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to send everyone to 10 breakout rooms. We'll come back in about 7 minutes.
Okay. All right, now.
Okay, so you can join your rooms. There should be a message there.
Thank you for helping. Okay.
No problem. And if you don't see the message, please send me a message in the chat and I can move you to that room.
You could talk forever, right? About each other's and get more of a relationship, find out about priorities and making associations, which of course is the ICF. So the idea behind this activity is to illustrate the intercultural communication framework and to find out how a simple object, not simple, right? An object can help you get to know someone better, can help you understand more about their priorities, and can help familiarize you with something that's completely unfamiliar. And so you're building new schemata that way with each other, okay? And I am so sorry that you couldn't have more time, but our time is limited. But now you you do have a group and maybe you connected in some way and you can continue your conversation going forward. I am sharing right now breakout rooms 3 and 8. We combined rooms because we had 10 rooms and I just put 2 rooms per board. So you can see here what these groups had, these 2 groups had. Let's take a quick peek at the other rooms to see what people put. Here is, oh, that's an interesting, no caption for it, but I bet it has a story, that rock. It's a rock. Okay, a ring. I think we have a ring on another page. Now, ideally, you would be doing this on one board, as I did with Miro. But with Jamboard, it's tougher to do that, but you'd put it on one board. And then the next thing is to say, this is a collection. So because we have this collection, there's so much you can do with it. Normally, the first thing I would do is have each group share. So because of time, we're not going to be doing the sharing piece, but the idea is for everybody to have a chance to look at all of the objects and to have people from the different groups say something about their discussion, their objects. And again, now it's familiar to them because they were in that breakout room and they can share with each other what they learned about each other, what they found they had in common. Sometimes people find they have things in common. And all kinds of things can come from these discussions. But what I'm going to do with you is a bit different because this is a PD, not a lesson. So I'm asking you now, what could you teach with this? Can you, this is what we call a collection, and this is actually a MALP project. Doesn't have to be cultural artifacts. I've done it with all kinds of other types of objects. But a class collection enables you, and if you've done any reading in my articles and books, we talk about that project. And you can teach a lot of things with a collection, and especially if it's familiar objects and also objects that are meaningful to the students, they're more invested in it that way. So what could you teach based on an artifacts collection? Let's hear some ideas. You can, I think you can unmute and tell us what could you teach. We'll just spend a few minutes on this and brainstorm what kinds of things could you teach? What kinds of lessons? Taking a look now at rooms 4 and 9, we can see the Greek coffee urn and the Aki tree, and this is some jewelry I'm sure is very significant. So who has some ideas? You can unmute and speak. Carving tool. Remember, you can go through the boards yourself. You have the link.
I was just going to say that I think there's some just really great opportunities to do all kinds of sorting and categorizing of items,
Yes.
open sorts and categorizing by like semantic things for
Absolutely.
attributes, those kinds of things.
Yes, you can take attributes. You can do, you know, size, you can do material, you can do anything that you would put, you know, in a noun phrase to describe something, right? Material it's made of, where does it come from? All kinds of ways to categorize and sort, all right? And I don't know if you noticed, but in the Miro one, there were 2 teapots from 2 different countries that were very different, but they were teapots. So you can even do compare and contrast that way too. Yeah, thank you for that, definitely. And that's an academic way of thinking about objects they're already interested in. Okay, anything else that you can think of you could teach? What are some other ideas? There's a lot you could do. What else? Who has an idea? Anything. If you're not a hand raiser, put it in the chat. Only 20% of people are hand raisers. I don't know why we keep doing that. That's another, I'm on a campaign against hand raising.
You can have a discussion about world religions.
Yes, yes, absolutely. A lot of them tend to be religiously connected in some way, and that's an opportunity. You don't have to use the whole collection for everything that you do, right? So you can take a piece of the collection and focus on that one week and another piece and focus on something else. So definitely. an opportunity to look at a content area. Geography, someone put, that's another way. Pick ones that talk about a particular location, make a map, find out where these artifacts are from, and sorry, and then one of my artifacts fell. I've got some artifacts behind me. And you can teach geography that way. So it's really limitless. I mean, it's just up to you. Someone put history, science. I mean, there's so much you can do with it. So when people tell you stick to the curriculum, you know, this is your job to do. Just remember how much you can teach in terms of what this population needs just from a class collection, okay? And this is actually test prep, believe it or not. This is test prep because you're teaching them to think the way they have to think in order to handle the kinds of assessments and activities and tasks that are done to test them in our societies, okay? So we could go on and on. Emergent language learners, what do you see? Can we sort the artifacts? Yes, yes, you can go on and on and on, right? You could even take the captions and separate them from the pictures and see if they can match, because matching is something might be very new to them. But this they could match, right? Because they learned about each other's artifacts. So there are all kinds of things they can do that stump them normally, but they'll be more fluid and smoother doing those kinds of tasks when the data set, so to speak, is a comfortable data set for them as a group, all right? And they're bonding as a group. So this is the flavor of MALP is what I'm giving you today, not the specifics that you're going to get for next time. You're going to be looking at that. And in fact, that's what I want to show you now. I want to get you ready for what you're going to be doing now going forward. So this was what the main thing I wanted to work with you on today. And these Jamboards are here. So feel free, if some of you didn't have an artifact, you can still put it up at any time. This is your Jamboard group here. And you can add a caption if you didn't, whatever you want to do to get all of your artifacts up. And if anyone is really ambitious, you can move them all over and have a mural, and you could put them all on one mural. Okay, oh, here comes one. Woo, look at that. We're still getting them. We're still getting artifacts. Okay, all right, great. Oh, yes. Oh, we found out about the stone. Halliburton. All right. Now I'm gonna start reading them instead of working with you. I gotta go, I gotta stop. Okay, let's go back to the agenda. All right, so on the agenda, we've done number 5 on the agenda. And now what I would like to do is preview with you where we're headed next with this, because this is a 2-part series. And what I'm doing with you is what I consider to be not a one-stop workshop. So you worked before you came in here, you work with me now. I'm going to give you some asynchronous activities to do between now and May. And then we'll work again in May, more directly with the MALP. And then following the second section, I'm going to give you some materials related to advocacy and where you can go from here, action plans and such, okay? So it's 5 parts, 2 synchronous and 3 asynchronous, all right? So now I'm going to show you what we are going to do for next time. So this is I'm going to show you, I'm going to do a new share now. I have to do a new share. All right. Okay. I'm looking for my sharing. Okay. So now I'm going to share with you very quickly. There's going to be 2 videos, and the first video you're going to watch is about cultural dissonance. I'm going to quickly share a PowerPoint very briefly with you to give you an idea. This is a PowerPoint, but I'm going to have you watch the video of it where I talk about it. So for example, this is probably an example you're sort of familiar with. The same object can mean something very different depending on someone's perspective. And so we're going to be looking at that. And then I talk about the layers of the instructional context and how culturally responsive teaching fits as a layer that's often missing that keeps our students from succeeding. Okay, and this entire graphic I talk about quite a bit, so you'll get the idea of where I'm coming from with it. And then these are assumptions about learning in our formal educational system. Now, this is written for K-12, and I know a lot of you work with adults, okay? So it's somewhat applicable in any case, and you can think of it still in terms of adults because it's an independent learner we're looking for, and to prepare the learner for the remainder of their life after they've had programs with you, okay? And for number 2, participate and demonstrate mastery on an individual basis and engage in literacy-based classroom tasks. That applies as well to older learners, all right? So these are the assumptions. And then I go through and show in the video, I will talk to you about how none of these are assumptions that are necessarily, they could be, but not necessarily shared by the students we're working with now that we're talking about as SLIFE students. And then I talk about the 3 major differences. This should be very familiar to you, but I talk about it in a way that perhaps might be new, okay? So that's the first, this is the PowerPoint for it, but that's the first video that I'd like you to see. And then I actually do have a video that I want to just show you a couple minutes of, 1 minute of perhaps, which is the one on MALP. So then you're going to watch the MALP video. So this is the MALP video, and I'm just going to play like the first minute of it just to get you, to dip into it a second. By the way, you can control the speed. I tend to talk slowly. I guess it's my ESL training. I just can't seem to talk too fast. So you can speed me up. If you go in the corner, you'll see playback mode, and I've already put it to 1.25, so you can always speed me up if I'm too slow for you. Let's listen, very short message here.
So this is the video lesson on a new paradigm for learning. And the new paradigm for learning is called the Mutually Adaptive Learning Paradigm, or MALP. And you see the little circle R, so MALP is a registered trademark. I developed it in Wisconsin back in the early 90s. And I'm still talking about it today because I think that it's sorely needed. It's a culturally responsive and sustaining instructional model. That's why it's part of our training. So let's go. Now, I'm going to have you pick up where we left off. Where did we leave off? Cultural dissonance.
All right, so that's the one you're watching, the cultural dissonance. But here's the key question.
That's the answer that MALP provides.
So this is the key question. How do we reduce cultural dissonance while fostering learning in the new setting? Which is the essential question that MALP answers. And so this video will take you through the elements of MALP and show you how they fit together into a responsive and sustaining model. And it incorporates the ICF, it incorporates everything that we've talked about so far. All right. And
context. And then we have the US classroom settings. And so I'd like you to take a minute to do the left-hand side, the familiar cultural settings, and check the items that fit with that side.
Okay, so if you didn't get a chance to understand with PlayPosit, the questions jump out. It's interactive. You need to answer the questions, okay? So I ask you questions and we're gonna fill in the chart, but I ask you first to think about the chart, okay? I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute now. So what I'm asking you to do is go all the way to the end. A lot of you didn't go to the end of the video this time. At the end, it asks for your feedback on the video on a scale of 1 to 5 and why you rated it that way. So some of you didn't go to the end, and that's why it didn't say you got 100%, because you didn't go to the end. So remember to go to the end of the videos that I give you. And then also, some of you watched the clip from Gran Torino, but did not comment on it. So a lot of you gave amazing comments. So go and see those comments from everybody, because that's an open discussion that you can all see from Gran Torino. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you didn't actually do the video, you can still do it. So you have a class, and I'm going to show you the play posit class that you have. Let me just show you your class. Hang on one second. I'm going to share again, and then we're going to do our reflection. I'm going to show you, well, there's another assignment you're going to do, but let me just show you the play posit. So this is what your class in play posit looks like. It's ERGO Intro to MALP, and you have 5 videos. We can put them in order here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one you've done or can do, you're going to be doing numbers 2 and 3 for next time. And then after we meet, you're going to be doing 4 and 5 as follow-up. Okay. But you can see 42 people already did the first one. And look, so 4 of you already watched number 5. Who are you? Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to stop that share now and do a new share. Okay. So the other thing I'm going to ask you to do, and I know we're running short of time, is I'm going to ask you, in addition to doing the videos, I'm giving you 2 things to do that you can do individually, with a partner, or collaboratively. You choose. You can do this. If you like to work alone, you work alone. If you like to work with one person, that's your buddy down the hall or in the next office, go ahead and do that. If you want to form a group, maybe your breakout group bonded, you want to do this together. So what this is you're going to take this scenario of Karen, which I don't expect you to read right now, but you will be doing it. You will analyze this scenario and then a lesson designed to address the same cultural issue that Karen faced, where Martha developed a project using ICF, and it is actually a MALP project. And so I want you to think about how that's a MALP project based on ICF when you do this activity. And you're going to post, I have a folder where you're going to post your results. And so the folder is in our big folder. It's in our main folder, and it's its own folder. So it says, if you see it, oh, sorry, I have to do a new share again. Oh, don't you just love Zoom? Okay, so there it is. Okay, so in our folder, you see where it says analysis of Karen sample and Martha sample. That's a folder. So whether you work alone, with a partner, or a group, that's where you put your analysis of Karen's thoughts and feelings and Martha's lesson based on that same issue. The issue, by the way, is attendance. Attendance. That's the issue that we're looking at. Okay, so it's not a classroom activity oriented one. Okay, the other thing I would like you to do is, I'm going to show you the follow-up sheet now, is you're going to, and I know we're running close here, but what we're going to do is, and this is kind of up to you, but I would like you to do it, but this would be the last thing. So number 1, watch the 2 videos. Number 2, do your analysis task where you're analyzing the attendance issue from the lens of ICF and MALP. Okay. The last thing, and this is the kind of, I don't call it assignment, but it's the follow-up. These are follow-up tasks. Okay. Is to design a lesson on cultural artifacts. Take artifacts. You can do it with your students, or you can do it with the ones from today, or you can do it the ones from Miro. Pick whatever you want, but do a lesson on cultural artifacts. And I have a folder for that as well. So when you have your lesson, put it in the folder, and I'm telling you how to name it. So for example, you first put the age, like you could put adult, or this is 10th grade social studies, the thread of our history through artifacts, a timeline. So that was the historical one. 2nd grade ELA writing, the stories behind our artifacts, a theme booklet. Okay, so you decide, be creative, make up a lesson. Okay, and then the videos and play posit. So that's what I ask you to do for next time. Okay, and you can contact me, anytime you if you have a question or you need to talk to me. I don't only exist from 10 to 11 on April 8th. I exist 24/7. So I really am open to anyone who wants to contact me. And the last thing we're going to do is go back to the Jamboard, and you're going to post a reflection on this whirlwind workshop. So you go all the way to the end, and on pages, whatever, it's pages 8 and 9, I guess. If you can go in the Jamboard, my own computer is slow now. I don't know why. Go all the way to the end of the Jamboard, and you should see something that says reflection. And again, if there's an issue for you, you can use the chat, but it's much nicer if you please could put your sticky up on the reflection page. So grab a sticky and take one thing you take away from this whole experience just now, the session. What are you taking with you from today? And I look forward to seeing you. Everything is available to you. You can go back, if this went by fast, go back and look at anything you want. It's all there. That's your folder. It's your folder. You have it. And I really appreciate your inviting me. And I'm here if you have questions. I know that you have a meeting, that you have other things on your agenda. And I think I took an hour, given that I started a little bit after 10. So write your reflection and thank you. Oh, we're up to page 18. We shouldn't be. Why are we up to page 18? I don't know how we got so many pages. Okay, there we go. So the reflection page is page 8 and page 9. Okay, so just post your reflections and thank you. So I don't know, do we, Christine, do we have time for any questions, or what's the situation?
Yes, of course, if anyone has questions, they can post them in the chat, or they can ask them now before Helaine goes.
I see people are asking about the links. Yeah, I kind of, after halfway through, I stopped posting. Okay, let me post. I'm going to post some more links. Here they come to everything that we're doing. I'm going to give you a whole ton of links right now. Let's see. I think I am anyway.
Thank you to everyone that's able to post and share their reflection on the pages. Helaine, while you're doing that, I'd like to thank you for your time today and sharing your the information and this practice of sharing cultural artifacts. And we look forward to our homework, our follow-up tasks, as you call them, and exploring more of this, the idea of the mutually adaptive learning paradigm as part of the culturally responsive pedagogy that educators are using in the schools in Ontario.
Okay, I just want to make sure you see the link to join the PlayPosit class. If you just click that link, you join our class, and that gives you access to the 5 videos.
Wonderful, thank you. No, that's great.
Okay, so
thank you, everyone.
Again, if you have questions, you have my email. I'll put my email in there. There's my email. So
thank you.
Thank you. And you can always follow up with me. I appreciate it. Okay.
Thanks for joining us this morning,
Okay.
Helaine.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, and so thank you for everyone for their participation and the time and sharing during that session. And I'm just going to stop the recording, if I can figure that out.